Hey Saints, and welcome to Saints TV Round 11 preview. 5-5 facing Port Adelaide in Shanghai, our first ever international AFL match. Port Adelaide have done it the last couple of years, and now we're with Gold Coast, and now we're into it. We're going to Shanghai. We flew out today. It looked like we took a few new faces. I saw a photo with Darragh Joyce on the plane, and that kind of gave me a hint that he was going to be in the full squad. Whether he plays or not is another question. We have another extended bench. No one out, with 4 pretty big ins. No bigger than our captain, Jarryn Geary, who after 41 days out with that really disgusting thigh issue that he had. We all saw the photo where they cut it wide open to kind of rid all the swelling and blood from it. 41 days. It's going to be awesome if he can play. We'll see after the flight over there and how he pulls up in the next couple of days. But if we can have our captain back in that back line, I give us an even bigger chance of pulling off a pretty big win that we need. You know, if we can go 6-5 into the break, I'd be very happy with that. The other ins, Joyce, as I mentioned, Hunter Clark and Nick Caulfield. Both of those guys have been pretty dominant lately in VFL for Sandringham, so there's no surprise that they've been called up and they're making the trip over. Ben Patton's still a bit injured after that Collingwood game where he was a bit sore, and he's playing for Sandringham. You know, Max King pulling up, playing for Sandringham, and the big news is that Dan Hanbury is also going to be playing for Sandringham this week, and Jake Carlisle, I think, not far after the bye. Among a few other players, and you know, Jack Stephen we don't know yet. So there's if we can get through this and get to 6-5 with the break and the week off, that's another week of, you know, a lot of players that haven't played this season or have struggled with injuries. Another week for them to get ready, to get their bodies right, and then we can really tackle that second half of the season. Because once we come back, the run in becomes quite easier compared to what we've had. We come back and we play Gold Coast, then we play Brisbane. We still play Carlton again. We still play Bulldogs. We play North. We play Freo in Melbourne. We play Sydney. There's a lot of Melbourne again. There's a lot of winnable games there. So if we can get some players back, pick up some form, this is that line in the sand sort of game. And Jordan Peeler just says 50-50 game, and I agree with you. It's the classic 8-point game. This can make our season. This is a big game. We've been down for the last month, and we've had that because of the games we've played, because of the good teams that we've faced. You know, we've done well in most of those games. We didn't come away with the points, but we did well, and I think we've grown from it. And I think last week, even though it was a pretty ugly game, and we can say that, you know, we only beat them by 13 points or whatever it was in the end, Carlton were always going to come out guns blazing. They're always going to come out tough. And it's a game that I think a year ago or 2 years ago, we would have lost. We would have panicked under the pressure, especially when Cruiser kicked that goal. And we would have buckled under the pressure and lost the game. And we would be made fun of all week until this game. This season, 5-5 after that tough run, we've had some pretty big wins, some pretty important wins, expected wins, and some unexpected wins. You know, there hasn't been many games where we've expected to win and we haven't performed. This game is a 50-50 game. We've had a bit of a rough patch against Port recently. We haven't won against them for a few years at least. And I don't want to think about that game in 2017 that pretty much cost us a finals berth, where Robbie Gray kicked that goal from the tap-in with about 30 seconds to go. That is painful to think about any time I think about it. They've got their own injuries. I think Ollie Wines is still out. Dixon is out. Rockcliffe is flying over with a bit of a flag over his head, whether he's good enough to play or not. So I think we've got them at the right time. And I think playing them in Shanghai, it's a neutral ground. You know, we usually play Port in Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, and it's always, you know, very one-sided. The crowd's on their side. It's very momentum-based when you play them there, and they always get on a roll there. They're rarely beaten there, but we're playing them in Shanghai, so it's a dead neutral ground. We just go there and we play. There's no home ground advantage. There's no sounds of affirmation, like Richo would say. You know, there's no big Port Adelaide following in the crowd. So I think we go there and we can be super confident. So I'm very happy with the team that we've picked. I mean, it's the same team as last week, except now we've got more on the bench. I personally think that Geary can come in. Whether there's a spot for him, you know, I don't know. Who would come out to make space? Would it be It's got to be probably likely to be a Ben Long. He was very quiet last week. I thought he had one of his quieter games for the season, although he's had a quiet month. When he's played, he's been quiet. He's kicked, he kicks his goals, but he's not laying enough tackles and he's not getting enough of the ball. So, do we sacrifice a Small? Probably, because I think we've got Kent. I've also got Robbie Young, who had a very quiet game last week, who's flown over, but whether he plays is another question. Hunter Clark's, we could go for another mid. Personally, though, I think Geary comes in, and I think maybe Robbie Young or a Ben Long comes out. Matty Parker kicked 2 goals last week, played very well. Happy to keep him back into the team. I've got the AFL predictions here, so let's have a look at what they reckon. They think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a tight game, hopefully at least. Let's go to what they think. Last time we played Port was last season, round 16, and we lost by 36 points. I was really sick that day and didn't even watch the game. For only game in the last 10 years I haven't seen, and we lost badly, so no point even going over that. What this means for St Kilda, at 5-5, the Saints are in finals contention. Their relatively average percentage of 91.7 means they probably need one more win than whichever side finishes 9th to feature in September, and victory over 10th place Port would help achieve that ambition. So this is why I'm saying it's a very important game, because if we can go into the break at 6-5, sets up the season, particularly the second half of the season. We get injuries back, momentum starts shifting our way after we kind of had backs against the wall for the first 10 games. But if we can go through the next 4 or 5 games, get players back, get some important wins on the board, I'd be very happy with that. They're tipping Port by 2 points. I'm tipping us by 10 points. I think it's going to be a close game. But I think that if we can get our entries into the 50 right, we can do some damage. I think in the midfield, with them missing Ollie Wines, is a massive benefit for us because he's a boss and one of the best inside mids in the game. Them missing Dixon, who's killed us, helps our backline even more. And if our backline is strengthened by Geary, even better, because they're missing a forward. We get a key back in the team. We're even stronger. Let's quickly go through some of these comments, and then I might wrap it up. Joe says, how many overseas games have St Kilda won? I don't think we've never played overseas, have we? I don't know. That's a tough question. Yes, the New Zealand game against Carlton, I remember that, and Sydney and I think Brisbane as well. My bad. But this is significantly international, guys. Shanghai, New Zealand, different kettle of fish. Jordan says 50-50 game. Rosie says we played 3 games in New Zealand. That's correct. My bad. It's going to be 28 degrees on Sunday in Shanghai. Perfect weather. Pretty humid though, which the players have been training for. They've been training and sitting in heat chambers so to get their bodies to adapt to that sort of temperature. And I think, it shouldn't be an issue. They're AFL footballers. They train through December, 40 degree heat in Melbourne when, December to January. So it shouldn't be an issue for them. Rockcliffe is out, so he's confirmed out. Even better. I haven't even looked at the Port team, to be honest. I'm so focused on us and pretty nervous about it. I really hope that we can get the win. Patton is injured, Craig. So Patton, I think he hurt himself a couple of weeks ago against Collingwood, and he hasn't really pulled up. I think it was his right hand. I'm not sure if it was in a tackle or not, but that caused that injury. And he's playing for Sandy this week, so he didn't play at all last week. He's had the week off, he's improved, his hand's getting better, and he's playing for Sandy on the weekend with Max King, with Dan Hanbury, with all those guys. So good luck to those guys, and hopefully Max King can go into the break with a big bag on the weekend, and then we can see come next year, after the bye, Gold Coast, and I think maybe the Brisbane game at Marvel, the second game after the bye. I think that's when he might debut, but we'll see. Darren says, will Phillip stay? And made a few mistakes last week, but he's still my favourite young player. I think Phillip should stay in. He's got a steady head on him. He's a clean ball user. He doesn't get enough of it, but I think he's worth persisting with. I think Robbie Young or Ben Long, I think, plus Dean Kent, plus Gresham, plus Parker. Too many smalls in this team. We need to even that out. At least Phillips gives us depth off half-back and can go into the midfield, whereas I don't think Ben Long or Robbie Young can adapt to the midfield just yet, so to me, one of them loses their roles, and unfortunately, I think it might have to be Robbie Young. I think he only had 4 possessions last week. If it's 6-5, surely we will be 7-5, says Jesh. Just jumping the gun, thinking we'll beat Gold Coast. Gold Coast have been pretty good over in Queensland. I think we're playing them in Townsville, so not Metricon like they're used to, but they still have pretty good home form, so I wouldn't be super confident about that, but you'd expect to go there and get a performance. Johnny says, want to see us kicking goals from in front. Biggest issue is our conversion because of where we are kicking them. Exactly, we're bombing them to the tight spots, and even if we get marks in those positions, they're very difficult to kick from. We need to go more central, more towards the goal square, and we need to lead out straight out at the ball user, not wide. We're always leading wide, and even if you get the mark, it's not going to be an easy shot. Who will win, Liverpool or Tottenham? Champions League final. I hope Liverpool win. I hate Tottenham because I'm an Arsenal fan, so this is completely unrelated to AFL. But I'm an Arsenal fan, and yes, we got smashed in the Europa League final this morning 4-1, so I'm a bit fuming from that. But I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. Keep the comments coming. I'll respond when I can. I'm trying to keep these a bit quicker. I don't want to have you guys watching for 20-30 minutes. It just gets too long, but keep the comments coming, and I'll respond when I can. And obviously, you'll see me after the game on Sunday. I think it starts at 2:20 our time. So we'll see how we go. Go Saints. See you then.